The Pentagon, it turns out, has been searching social media sites for what they say are mean tweets about generals, according to at least The Intercept. And it says, when the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, enters his scheduled retirement later this year, one of the perks will include a personal security detail to protect him from threats, including embarrassment. So embarrassment is now a threat. If you insult someone's character, you are a threat to this general. The U.S. military, the U.S. Army Protective Services Battalion, the Pentagon's little-known Secret Service equivalent, is tasked with safeguarding top military brass. The unit protects current as well as former high-ranking military officers from assassination, kidnapping, injury, or embarrassment. Right. According to Army records. Protective Services mandate that has expanded to include monitoring social media for direct, indirect, and veiled threats, and identifying negative sentiment, that's an exact quote, regarding its wards, according to an Army procurement document dated September 1st, 2022, and reviewed by The Intercept. The expansion of the Protective Services Battalion purview has not been previously reported. Now, you could argue we're in the age of fifth-generation warfare. Information is warfare these days. China does it. Russia does it. China has the 50-cent army. China has agents carrying out, honey traps and blackmail operations. There are agents very much active on the internet, bots, even political actors doing this type of stuff. In fact, I personally knew an individual who ran a bot network in Washington and sold his services to U.S. politicians and to businesses. And what it would do basically was jump into people's DMs on Twitter, the direct messages, and insult them, harass them. Because it's easy to program an AI to insult somebody. You don't have to make intelligent arguments. You go in and you send 50 bots and you just tell someone they're an idiot, 5 times a week. Or you tell someone how terrible they are 5 times a week and you destroy their spirit. You make them no longer want to speak out because they think the public is against them and they can't withstand it. Now, there are governments that do this as well. Russia has the Internet Research Agency, for example, that carries out these types of operations. But when you start having operations that look at public sentiment or public criticism as being a threat, even a terroristic threat against individuals, you start getting to the question of, well, look, an elected government is based on the idea that you like some people and you don't like some people. And the ability of the American public to choose their leaders is based on us to enact that sentiment in a very real way by voting people out or by holding them to account. In fact, the journalism, what you would call the fourth estate, is partly designed as an accountability, a publicly hired, through subscriptions and advertisements, a publicly hired system of accountability to ensure that things are functioning as they should, to alert the American voter if they are not. And without scrutiny, without criticism, without the ability to criticize, there are no checks and balances on power. And you'll find now that those types of checks and balances, the criticism of tyranny, is becoming itself deemed a public threat. And unfortunately, we find that our rights are being whittled away under these new narratives. The threat of disinformation, the threat of foreign blackmail, the threat of bots, Russian bots, all these things, and, extremism, right, MAGA extremism, right-wing extremism. These narratives have real-world implications. They're not just labels. They have real-world implications that can be used, both politically, through partisan politics, through insiders, or through actual military operations. Anyways, folks, that said, those of you on YouTube, speaking of censorship, come join me on Epoch TV for the rest of this episode. We'll jump into questions.